by the end of 2023, we were nearing a situation where we had almost 0 months runway. There was a period in time for 3 months when the leadership team was not receiving salary. What I find really interesting is that no one left the company.
So our calendar year 2025 ended with around $29 million.
What were the 2 biggest mistakes that you think Osome made during that period?
I guess the 2 biggest mistakes, I think one would be
Hey everyone, welcome to TRV Podcast. Today I'm so excited to be joined by Eugenio, CEO of Osome, and Egor, VP of Strategy at Osome as well. I want to do this episode, right, because most people only see the polished version of startup stories. This startup raised 1 mil, 10 mil, this startup, go IPO and stuff like that. They see where the company is today, but they don't really see the struggle behind the period where the company is struggling, some of the behind the scenes stuff that they don't share, the mistakes and how the company has figured out to survive. Mm-hmm. And Osome actually went through that too, the tough period, which honestly I don't think a lot of people know that, the behind the scene of Osome. That's why I want to do this, podcast and conversation today to really unpack the real story behind Osome. What Osome does, when things started going wrong, which I don't think a lot of people know that, how they turn it around and the biggest lessons that came out from it, for other founders to learn from. So, Egor, great to have you guys here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So before we start, just to kickstart this, could you briefly share about yourself, your background, and your journey with Osome?
Should I start?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So before joining Osome, I worked at management consulting, Bain & Company. Worked there for 3+ years. It was an interesting experience for sure. Consulting is sometimes hard, but the thing I started kind of not really liking about consulting was the fact that a lot of work that you do is just advising, whereas you're not implementing stuff. So I decided to kind of shift a bit, and that's when I got introduced to Victor, the founder and the CEO of Osome. And so I joined Osome in 2022 in a capacity of more or less his chief of staff, helping with the fundraising and the strategy. Later on continued, so 4 years here already, and now working in the capacity of VP of strategy.
Cool. Yeah.
I was also in management consulting earlier in my career at the same firm. Bain & Company. We never met then.
Okay.
Different eras. And after that, I worked for a few tech companies. Most recently, I was running my own co-living company, which gave me a lot of experience as an operator in a very operationally intensive business. And then mid-2024 is when I first got involved with Osome. They were right halfway in their turnaround. And I really liked the tech. I thought the tech was incredible. They needed to shift away from the previous mindset of growth at all costs and become a bit more disciplined than I thought I could help.
I would love to deep dive into turnaround, but before that, right, I want to really go back all the way to the beginning, to the early days of Osome. What was the original idea when Victor started it, and why did it matter? Why Osome exists?
The original idea was pretty simple. Victor is a serial entrepreneur himself, and he's been through the struggles that entrepreneurs have to go through. So basically, when you open a business, you cannot just purely focus on executing. You have to go through all the compliance, through the paperwork. You have to establish your business. You have to be compliant. You have to file your accounting, taxation, filings, etc., etc. So being an entrepreneur himself, Victor understood the struggle, and the initial idea was pretty simple. Entrepreneurs are the people who are changing the world, who are building new stuff and building the systems that improve our lives. And we want them to be able to focus on what's really adding value and what's really improving the life of the world, rather than all this routine stuff. So Osome was an idea of, okay, we'll be able to help them and we'll run the back office for them. And we'll try to automate as much as possible so that the founders can basically keep focus on improving their business, growing their business, and doing the stuff that matters rather than those routine and not interesting tasks.
I'm just curious, when you started at what point do you guys, because you joined Osome quite early on, right? At the earliest stage. How do you guys start realizing that, hey, this is something that's really working? There's a product market fit there. Like, when do you actually realize that there's a PMF?
Yeah, I mean, the PMF was reached before I joined Osome, because I joined in 2022,
Okay.
and the company was up and running for 5 years already by that time. I guess at the moment when I joined, there were already tens of thousands of customers. Yeah. So I already had my proof. But in general, I mean, it clicks when you see that people, the founders, I mean, like, really engage with you. They really appreciate the fact that everything is being taken care of, and they can just focus on, talking to customers, I don't know, focus on business development, sales, etc. Whereas Osome has their back, and Osome does everything else for them. And by meeting a lot of founders who are appreciative of that, I understood that, there is a market for that, and there is definitely something to be done about that. And also, if you think about it, majority of the businesses in the world are SMEs, so small and medium enterprises. Like, the big firms, of course, they have their own accounting staff, they have their own taxation staff, they have their own payroll, so they don't really need a service like Osome. But 98% of the businesses out there are small and medium businesses. Like, I imagine, like yours, for example, a podcast, right? It's not an enterprise that you're running. Yeah. And those people, they really lack time to do this stuff, and they're really underserved because it's very expensive for them to hire a separate person who would be taking care of this on one hand. And on the other hand, there is no one who's catering to that need. There's no specific solution for SMEs. So that's when I realized, okay, the TAM is very big for the accounting service here. Then you have real proof. You have tens of thousands of customers already when I joined. And on the other hand, the market itself is very segregated, right? So you have like tens of thousands of accounting firms out there in Singapore, in the US, in Europe, everywhere, all over the world. And usually those are very small shops that serve maybe, I don't know, like 100 clients or 150 clients or so. So when you think about it, there's a big market. It's yet to be consolidated. And we already had a proof of concept with tens of thousands of clients. So that's when I realized, okay, yeah, there's something here, and we might be able to build a huge company here.
Interesting. You mentioned about accounting, and also know that Osome also does incorporation, CorpSec. Like you guys are doing so many things, right? Like, I'm just curious, probably this is a question for Eugenio, maybe you can share more about that. Like, for founders or SMEs hearing about Osome for the first time, what does Osome actually do today? And who are you actually serving, right? Because Egor mentioned about SMEs and all these, like, what kind of SMEs? Like, what are the target audience? Like, what does it do? Stuff like that.
We are an AI-driven company management platform for globally mobile founders. We help entrepreneurs to set up and run their businesses in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in the UAE, and in the UK. So if you think about it, mostly global centers where people want to go to set up their businesses for different reasons. And the reasons could be you are a tech entrepreneur somewhere in Southeast Asia or India, you are getting some traction, you're ready to grow farther, you want to fundraise, and in the region, Singapore is the best place for you to incorporate a new top co fundraising there. Or you are an e-commerce provider somewhere else in Asia, you want to be closer to China to be able to make payment without friction, take advantage of trade financing and other options that are available to companies closer to China. So you incorporate a new subsidiary in Hong Kong and you operate from there. Yeah. Tech entrepreneurs, we help freelancers, and we help founders who are either setting up their company for the first time or they already have a company somewhere else and they're moving to these global centers to continue their journey.
So at this point of time, for Osome stage, would you say your biggest customers come from tech startups or like a mix of different stages?
Tech startups and freelancers are our two biggest segments today.
Okay. Why freelancers though?
There are a lot of freelancers in this part of the world.
Yeah.
Not specifically in Singapore, it tends to be a bit too expensive for the digital nomads. But if you think of Phuket, Bali, in general, there are a lot of remote work locations where you can optimize your taxes. You can take advantage of billing from places like Hong Kong or Singapore while living in these remote locations.
And in the modern world, it's an emerging cohort of people. Like there are a lot of people who basically do freelance or fractional work.
Yeah.
Be that developers or be that fractional CXOs or other types of people.
Okay, interesting. This is something that I've always thought of that because in Singapore alone, there's so many, not just counting like CorpSec, there's so many fragmented CorpSec companies out there running, having a smaller customer base and all this. Do you see that moving forward, there will be a consolidation phase for this kind of CorpSec and accounting? Because it seems like Osome is like, you guys do everything, right? From CorpSec, accounting, and even more than that, bookkeeping, stuff like that. Like, how do you see this going, the landscape? Yeah, the CorpSec and accounting and all this.
Maybe there is going to be some consolidation. I think this industry, not just in Singapore, but across the world, is ripe for consolidation. One thing about Singapore, there were last year 58,000 newly incorporated private limited company without counting partnership and other types of companies. So it's not a small market. There is definitely room for a lot of service providers.
Interesting. And for early stage founders who are setting up their companies, doing their CorpSec and accounting and compliance stuff, because I talk about fucked ups and mistakes all the time. I'm just wondering, right? Like for founders, what are the most common mistakes that you see founders make when they set up their company or doing their financial ops, right? After dealing with so many, thousands of customers at Osome.
I think when it comes to accounting, many people buy a DIY software thinking that they are hiring a CFO. They have to put in a lot of work. They have to put in 30, 40 hours a month to effectively use that DIY software. They might be better off, instead of a software, going with a service provider. And then the choice of service provider becomes very dependent on what type of experience they want to have. We have a good mix of self-service capabilities and access to human experts whenever you think that you need the type of advice that only a person can give you.
Right. And maybe to deep dive into that, right? Let's say the first time founder who wants to do, accounting. Like what is the first mistake, the most common mistake that you see a founder tends to make when he or she does his accounting work?
They'll underestimate the amount of time it takes. And I did it myself at my previous company.
Co-living company? Okay.
Both myself and my co-founder are fairly well versed in accounting. He's actually a CPA. And we decided, let's just get zero and do it on our own. The time that went into it was just not worth it. So after a couple of years, we grew to the size where we could afford to have a fully dedicated accountant, and we went that way. But for the first 2 years, instead of doing it on our own, if I could go back in time, we would use a service from the get-go.
Back then, when you were building your co-living company, did you get accountant to help you out, or you guys just did?
For the first 2 years, we did everything on our own. Yeah.
And do you have experience in doing that?
He is a CPA.
And you guys still struggle, even if
the time wasn't worth it.
Okay. Interesting.
So the opportunity cost is basically you'd rather spend this time on actually building the business than doing accounting yourself. And a lot of people think that, oh no, I may actually save some costs here and there because I will do it myself. But it's just not worth it. You're better off paying a service provider because it's not that expensive. Everything is going to be taken care of and everything is going to be of good quality. And then you make one mistake and you spend hours and hours, and maybe tens of hours to recover from it.
When I first started, my first company back then, I actually thought about doing everything myself. When I realized that, it was really, really tricky to do it right. And it was really time consuming. And I totally agree with the opportunity cost because I do see a lot of my founder friends, the early stage one, because they're scrappy, right? They tend to just want to do everything themselves. And yeah, ended up wasting a lot of time doing the reconciliation. And
How do you do it now? Do you use Osome?
not yet. Not yet, but I'm gonna do it because my financial year hasn't come yet. So I will start, working on that. But I'll come to you guys for this for sure. Yeah. Talking about this, right? I think we have talked about how Osome, started, how it grew, and what kind of people that you serve. I'm sure, like, in this year, how many years already has Osome been around?
So the Osome was started late 2017. So it's almost 9 years.
Almost 9.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say 9 years, right? Because you joined quite early. Of course, not the earliest one, but like early stage. What is the toughest moment in Osome's journey? Maybe, near-death kind of experience or situation that you guys haven't talked about publicly before. Because on the outside, I can tell you from what I see from, outside the point of view that Osome is really doing good, growing super fast as a rocket ship and all this. And I just want to know, like, do you guys actually face any challenges? Like, what's the toughest point here?
Yeah, so first few years were definitely a rocket ship, and we were able to double the top line every year, starting in 2017, 2018, everything. We grew, we launched new markets, Hong Kong, UK, etc. And then when I joined in 2022, we were at a point when we were raising a fundraising, like a round. We were able to secure, I think in total, roughly 35 million in 2022. And so we proceeded with doubling down on the growth and investing more in R&D, in automation, in expanding in existing markets. But in 2023, kind of like a freeze came to a market. So market abruptly cooled down.
Cool down means
it was much harder to raise money.
Raise money. Oh, yeah.
It was the funding winter of 2023.
It was the funding winter at that point.
But you just raised in 2022, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the idea was that this 2022 raise was more of a bridge towards a proper like Series B and Series C round in the future. So we were still targeting raising something in 2023. And 2022 was a great year in terms of fundraising. It was rather easy, but 2023 was a winter of fundraising all over the globe. So it became rather hard to do that. And we were investing heavily the money that we raised in 2022 in growth. And at the same time, I think the efficiencies that we wanted to realize were not there yet. So the money that we invested in R&D wasn't yet giving us the payback, so to speak. So while scaling the operations, we were also scaling the costs proportionally. So we spent a lot of money, and we were basically running low on cash by the end of 2023.
Within a year, after you raised in 2022?
Within a year and a half. Yeah.
A year and a half?
Yeah.
And how much did you raise again in 2022?
30 million.
Wow. That was super growth, man. Like,
yeah.
But you guys were the tech company, right? Technically, like, where do you spend the money on? Like, is it hiring or like the tech costs or something?
You spend mostly, like, there are several buckets, of course. Okay. We're not a pure tech company. You have to also acknowledge that we are a service company. So a significant portion of our cost is still operations. So we have people that are employed by us who do partially the job. So like we're not like Zero, where Zero is just a software and you then hire an accountant, but we're rather a fully fledged service. So in order to be that, we also need to hire and internally employ operational people. And then we also have as a very sizable R&D department, which basically focuses on automating the work of those operational people.
Right.
And then, of course, we invested a lot of money in sales and marketing, meaning in growth, so in acquisition of new clients.
How bad was the situation really was? Because you mentioned in 2023, right? It's the end of 2023?
Yeah, so by the end of 2023, we were nearing a situation where we had almost 0 months runway.
0 months?
Yeah, 0 months. It was pretty tough.
Wow, and you couldn't fundraise, like?
Yeah, so we were actively fundraising for the second half of 2023, and no one was converting, because if in 2022 all the investors cared about was growth at all costs, and they were happy to give you money as long as you showed growth of the top line. In 2023, investors were now looking at both the growth and the efficiency, so the bottom line. So it was no longer growth at all costs, but rather you have to grow efficiently and you have not to burn money. And then when investors were looking at us, they were like, okay, no, those guys are burning like more than $1 million a month. we're not going to give them more money because they're growing at all costs and they're not going to manage it properly.
Wow, I didn't know that, to be honest. Like, if you didn't tell me this, like, and what happened next?
I mean, we were slow to realize that growth at all costs is not great. So we started adjusting, and we started basically, I think we started a kind of a zero budgeting exercise of, okay, do we actually need this cost or not? And we started looking and turning every stone in order to get
Cut costs?
So get to a point where we're not running out of money. We raised a significant down round together with internal shareholders by the end of 2023. So we were able to convince them that there is still value in the business, and we were able to turn it around. We just need a bit of a runway in the beginning of 2024 in order to get there. Because like when you're cutting costs, there are some fixed costs that you also have to bear. Like, for example, when you're cutting stuff, you have to pay out severance packages, right? Yeah, exactly. So things like that. So we were able to raise an internal round. And then we proceeded with a turnaround, and then basically I'd say we used three main levers in order to achieve that. So first one, we had to cut some costs in R&D. So we had to optimize our investment in IT. So we basically laid off a bunch of people, kept only the key talent that we really needed, and thankfully. By the end of 2024 and 2025, there was AI banging on the door, and we were able to use that in order to increase the efficiency of what was left of our R&D team. But we didn't know that at the moment. Then the next thing was we optimized our investment in sales and marketing. So before that, it was growth at all costs. So the unit economics were, I'd say, kind of like they still made sense, but they were stretched. And so what we did is we thought about it from a unit economic perspective. We looked more into it, and we introduced more multi-channel strategies in order to optimize CAC. And we got rid of excessive investment in some of the channels, like, for example, paid channels. So advertisement on Google became too expensive, and we were not getting a good return on investment there. And we repurposed this money and invested it in other channels in marketing and sales. So basically, we thought about it, how can we grow smarter versus just pouring all the money in one or two channels that we used previously. And the third lever was, since we had a lot of investment in R&D, we were able to realize part of it by cutting costs and optimizing the headcount in operations.
So looking back, like, what were the two biggest mistakes that you think, Osome made during that period?
I guess the two biggest mistakes, I think one would be, just being a bit too late to realize that we were spending too much money and reacting too late on the conditions that changed, on the market conditions that changed, on the macros. And then premature tech spending is obviously one. So we invested a lot of money in R&D during time. We basically predated the market, because had we have this money now, for instance, we would be able to invest it much more smartly, because AI is here. Now there is no bottleneck in the amount of code that you can write. And had we had this amount of people employed in R&D right now, I think we would be able to get a much better return on investment. And at that point in time, maybe we predated the ability to actually automate accounting. And I think chasing growth at all costs was probably another one that I can mention, is we basically spent too much money, and we poured too much money in some channels that were not very efficient in terms of return on investment. Like, for example, paid advertising in Google or Facebook. We were just spending a lot of money. It was growth at all costs. We didn't really care whether every next client is getting more and more expensive. However, a smart way to go about it would be, okay, no, actually we have to diversify and use different channels in order to get more clients in.
What makes you guys want to grow at all costs? Like, was that because of pressure, or like what was
pressure
the
from the investors in 2022? So in 2022, when people gave you money, when the investors gave you money, they expected you to grow. They expected you to show this skyrocket growth, exponential. Exactly.
It wasn't awesome. Anyone pre-2023
everyone
was
just grew.
purely chasing growth. I remember the same thing was happening in co-living, with operators just signing up any type of asset they could, regardless of the economics of those assets. It was pre-2023 winter, chasing cost, growth at all cost, was what investors were demanding.
I think our mistake basically was we realized too slow that it changed drastically. And it changed drastically very fast. Like in 2023, all of a sudden...
You mean the investor sentiment?
The investor sentiment and the market sentiment overall. It doesn't really matter what what only investors think. I mean, like it matters from a fundraising perspective, but really the market sentiment. It's like all of a sudden, everyone realized that, oh, okay, now it's not growth of all costs, but you actually have to be self-sustainable. And you actually have to still show growth, but it has to be efficient. So it's no longer about, okay, show 2x, 3x growth at all costs, but rather, okay, continue growing, but be self-sufficient.
And once you guys realize the mistakes that you make, what changed operationally that actually turned the business around? Because you mentioned you guys did a lot of things, some mistakes in the early journey. Like what changed, and how do you guys fix that?
Yeah, I mean, as I pointed out, we went through kind of a zero budget exercise. So we looked at every department and we basically started trimming fat. I think in any startup's story, there's a point in time when you grow, and then you have to be more smart about it and trim some parts of it because they're actually becoming redundant. It's like, okay, you grow, then you optimize, and then you grow again from this optimization, already optimized state. And yeah, basically, I think it's a very straightforward exercise if you think about it. Not making it less painful though, but you just have to go thoroughly through every single thing and through every department and decide whether you really need it or not to deliver the services that you're doing.
And was that done before Eugenio joined the company, right?
We started doing it before Eugenio joined, but Eugenio was also there to see it through.
Right, okay. Before you joined, you were actually consulting or kind of advising the company.
So I joined the company middle of 2024 when the COO had just left.
Okay.
And I joined as a consultant to help specifically with operations. By October 2024, the board decided that the founder, Victor, was better suited to continue to advise the company on strategic matters, fundraising, but less involved with the day-to-day because of the speed of the turnaround execution. And that's when I started to lead operations.
So basically you came in to fix the execution, the operation, because things were moving so fast during the turnaround time. And when you step into the company, as a CEO, what was the first thing that you stopped doing?
Chasing growth at all costs.
This one,
Number one. Egor alluded to the diversification of acquisition channels. We went back to doing events, PR, influencers, not just paid advertisement. We started work on our strategy. We set our target customers to be the customers with whom we were doing better already historically. So tech startup, freelancers were from the beginning customers that were using Osome a lot. Only from the end of 2024 is when we actively started to say we want to focus on these two segments first, and then a few other segments with whom we know we're doing well. We had to rebuild the team. If you look at my leadership team today, I have 9 reports. 4 of them are new. They came after me, including the CFO, including the CTO, VP of VP of Sales, VP of
Strategy.
The VP of Strategy was here before in a different role. Yes. So new leadership team, and we all had to roll up our sleeves and work very closely together to execute in a very methodical way to make sure that we were going back to deliver good service. Because one of one of the downside of having a very operational business and cutting a lot of the people in operations is that your service is going to suffer. So through 2023, we saw NPS plummeting. And then from the beginning of 2025, we finally started to see those numbers going back up after we look at every single aspect of the service delivery and how we could deliver a good level of service with half of the resources that we used to have.
Right. If I were to rewind back a bit, basically what you are saying is when you guys cut the costs, some of the ops team away, your service suffer, and therefore the low NPS score. And kind of that explain also, some of the reviews that we saw online. And that's the period you guys started cutting costs and that is that.
Yeah, because I had to mention we had to cut costs more abruptly than we expected, right? Yeah. So we had plans of cutting costs and optimizing, but we had to do it faster because of the whole turnaround and the fact that we didn't have enough money to proceed. So we had to do it faster than we expected, and therefore not everything was ready from an R&D standpoint. So not all the systems were there yet, not everything was working properly, etc., etc. So we cut faster than we needed, and therefore the service suffered. So we spent significant portion of 2024 and 2025 rebuilding that, actually implementing the systems that we needed in order to provide a decent quality of service, and as Eugenio mentioned, working on the customer satisfaction and recovering the NPS.
I remember because I met you guys I think 1 or 2 months back, right, in one of your events. I remember, I don't know whether it's Eugenio or Rohan, you guys told me that you get a notification now whenever someone submits a review on Google, and the whole management team will be on Slack, stuff like that. Is that? Can you share more about that?
We get cool. All our Google review on Slack, yes. Yeah. What I think Ryan might have told you was when we do our quarterly NPS, everyone in my team gets assigned a few unhappy customers who gave us a detractor score, so 0 to 6. And we have to call them and understand what are the reasons behind those that detractor score, what could we do better, and report internally what are the lessons learned from those conversations with customers.
The management team called
No, my direct reports and myself.
Okay. And are you guys still doing that now?
We started doing it 2 quarters ago, last quarter, and we'll do it again in May.
Wow.
It's a great feedback loop.
How do you do with unhappy customers?
People at every level in the company should know what the customer pain points are.
Wow.
With Uber, you get management people working in delivery. That's kind of the same thing here, I guess. You have to understand what kind of service you're providing in order to better it.
I think that's cool. And I think, Eugenio, just now you mentioned about you guys, were serving many different SMEs. And then finally, when you joined, you decided to focus on 2 segments. One is tech startups, another one is freelancers. Why these 2 segments? Why not the rest? There's so many other SME segments there,
Historically, we were already doing well with these segments. And when I say we were doing well, we had a fairly good market share on these 2 segments, both in Singapore and Hong Kong. We had better NPS because if you think of the experience with Osome, it's a combination of self-service and human when you need more expertise. But you need to be open to the self-service part, which is not the traditional experience of going to a small accounting firm.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a lot of hands-on reminders from someone on WhatsApp that you are overdue on something, or if you want to be able to reach directly to your accountant for every small little question, we're not for you. And so we look at the segments where we had a good traction already. We were doing fairly well in terms of customer experience, and we decided to double down on those segments. And tech startups and freelancers are at the top of the list.
So basically, those SMEs, they need super hands-on experience. They need to interact with human all the time. You know, for their industry, those might not be a good fit, right? Because you focus mainly on the one they are comfortable with, self-serve, and then if they need, they can talk to humans, you know, stuff like that.
That's right.
Okay, and now, which is the biggest market that Osome is in now? Singapore?
Singapore is still the biggest. It's our own market, first market, and still the biggest.
No, in terms of market, the biggest market is probably the UK. But
UK?
the biggest... No, but when it depends on how you frame the question, right? So if we're talking about the market, that means the number of SMEs in the market, then the UK is the biggest market. If we're talking about what's the biggest, where does the biggest portion of Osome's clients come from, then the answer is Singapore.
I would say the latter one.
Then
your
Singapore.
Customer space.
Yeah.
You also expanded to UAE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what is the plan here? So are you trying to expand to like outside South Asia, to like UK and UAE? Like what is the plan?
We want to be where global mobile entrepreneurs are going to gravitate towards to optimize their business, to grow their business, to for their next phases. And if you think of startups in general all over the world, the centers that will constantly come back are the US, traditionally for tech startup, actually specifically the Silicon Valley, was the source of most tech startups. And outside of the US, there was a lot of European tech startups that at a certain point in their growth path would end up in London, because that's where you find a lot of capital to continue your journey. In Southeast Asia, the equivalent to London is Singapore.
Yeah.
You grow out of Indonesia, you grow out of Vietnam, your next phase is going to be funded from Singapore. You need to reincorporate in Singapore to be able to capture that funding. Traditionally, Hong Kong was a place for a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs as they were expanding out of China, but more and more is also a place for a lot of global entrepreneurs who want to go into China and need proximity to China. And the UAE in the last few years has become that to India, the Middle East, and it's also a place for many mobile entrepreneurs who want to optimize their company's taxes, their own personal taxes. So we are present in all the global centers for global entrepreneurs.
Where the money goes to, or the founders go to set up their companies. Yeah. Interesting. I think I would love to deep dive into that later. But yeah, I think on the turnaround kind of story, I am super inspired by how you guys make that work when you almost ran out of cash. When Egor say you only had like 0 month runway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I can actually specify that there was a period in time for 3 months when the leadership team was not receiving salary. And what I find really interesting is that no one left the company, and we're still pushing through. And we got to a point when we secured the funds from the existing investors and made the turnaround happen.
Nobody left.
Yeah, no one left. I mean, later on, the management team changed, as Eugenio mentioned. So there's half of it is people who were with the company since roughly 2022, and half of it are new people. But during this specific hard time, no one left.
Why do you think nobody left during that time?
Because people were convinced that what we're building is real. It's very simple. I mean, like everyone is motivated by building something that is meaningful and making some money along the way.
Of course.
So people were convinced that if they stay, we're still going to get through and we're still going to be able to do and to achieve both of those points.
Half of the leadership team today is former entrepreneurs, including myself. And you are seeing having an impact by enabling entrepreneurs to grow, to scale. You feel like you're on a mission. When tough time comes, you're not all of a sudden waking up and abandoning that mission.
And you are in a very, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, right? But the space that you guys are in, Osome is in, is quite competitive, right? There are quite a few players that are also in this space. I don't know, like in Singapore maybe, right? What would you say one thing that differentiates you guys from other competitors out there?
Our product. We invested significant amount of money in our product. So a lot of companies out there, they still work on the premise of, okay, there's existing accounting software, Xero, QuickBooks, Zoho Books, whatever that could be, depends on the location, and we work on top of it. So basically we build on top of it and we provide the service on top of it. What Osome has done in 2021 and 2022, we invested significant amount of our R&D work and money into developing our own system. So we have our own accounting ledger that we built on top of. And that allows us to achieve more automation and to tweak things more easily than versus when you have to work on top of the existing solution.
So you
I think it's a few things, because you can find just the product, Xero, QuickBooks, great, but they're DIY. You need to bring someone from your team to be able to deliver accounting service on it. We have a combination of a good product with service on top, mostly automated. When you need it, you can have access to people. So this combination is unique. The fact that we are in all the global center where an entrepreneur wants to be is also unique. You won't find others there. And in more and more, I think there is going to be the need for full service delivered in the exact same combination of automation and humans that we're using. People want to have human still in the loop. Like if you're not sure about a tax matter, you're not going to be happy with an answer from a bot. You want to know that there is someone there that you can ask and that you can trust. If you're facing an audit from a tax authority, you want to know that there is someone there to help you.
Okay, this I think this is interesting because Osome sits in this very interesting category, right? Where founders, they want fast, they want software speed, but they also want human accountability that they can rely on, during some time, right? And Osome now implements both AI and the human in the loop kind of system. I mean, you briefly mentioned about it, but I just want to know more, like where should AI handle the work in Osome? And where should humans stay in the loop, right? Does AI now in Osome handle most of the automations and humans only comes in when the stakes are high, or like, how does it work?
AI handles the automation. AI gives you the speed. When you upload documents, you don't want to wait for 2 days for the document to be categorized and reconciled, especially if it's something simple you expect to be done in minutes, and that's what AI allows you to do. AI allows our team to focus on more interesting tasks. No one studies to become a CPA to do a lot of manual journal transactions. They rather focus on helping customers understanding the big picture of where their business is going, why there was a hit on their margin, like more value-added conversations. And there is the aspect of dealing with regulators where you want to have people in the loop, whether it's advising the customers on how to structure a certain company or organization, or whether it's the fact that today, even in very progressive countries like Singapore, you still have to have someone with an actual sync pass to go and submit taxes for you.
Right. And so my understanding is basically humans come in to help when it involve high-value work. So those,
value-added work.
Yeah. And those things that are repeatable, that are mundane, can just be automated using your own AI system. Is this already there now? The AI automation systems that you mentioned is already running now, right?
It's always in progress, right?
It's always in progress, and it's getting better every day.
Yeah,
this was from the very beginning Victor's vision. The vision wasn't necessarily something that could be fulfilled with the technology when he started, but now with a combination of machine learning and new LLM and what Gen AI allows to do, the vision can finally come to fruition.
I also think that people are very hyped about AI, right?
Yeah,
nowadays.
like everyone talks about.
But really,
AI,
you
right?
don't have like in some of those systems, we still apply deterministic automation where it suits better, right?
Okay.
And also to the point that Eugenio mentioned previously, if you think about it, every service delivery is about three components: cost, time, and quality. And so from a cost and time perspective, AI allows you to do things faster and cheaper. But from a quality perspective, you also have to have people controlling what AI does at all times, because we're in a business where it's very important. You can make mistakes. If you file something to an authority where there's a mistake, you're responsible for that before your client, and your client is responsible before the government. So you really want to make sure that everything that you file is like proper, accurate data. So in that sense, you cannot outsource it to AI, and I do not expect it to be possible to be outsourced to AI in the next few years. You'll still have this control, kind of like, control.
Quality control.
Yeah, quality
by
control
people.
part that you...
You guys are in the business of, you can't, the margin of error is zero. Because when you do something wrong, then that's it. Okay. I'm just wondering about, when Eugenio, you joined and then you started, other changes and stuff like that. What were the metrics or the numbers that you focus on during the comeback? Like, how do you even know that you were the changes were like positive, right?
Yeah.
Making some good progress.
Yeah. So one of the first things we focused on was reigniting growth, but not growth at all costs. Growth that was sustainable. So we kept looking at our revenue was growing with a much lower marketing and sales spending that we used to have. We doubled the revenue from new customers in the last 12 months. We focus a lot on NPS, and we knew that it would result in net recurring revenue growth and lower churn. And we've started to see a positive NPS trend from the beginning of 2025, and it continues today. And cash flow was always something that we from day one focused on. We got new money as Egor mentioned, but we didn't want to find ourselves in a situation where we would have 0-month runway again. So we were very, very careful managing our cash, and we've been in a cash flow neutral situation for the last many months.
So 2 questions here. What's the revenue, if you don't mind sharing, right? The revenue range that you guys are doing now, like, are you guys profitable? What's the path to profitability, the roadmap for Osome down the road?
So our calendar year 2025 ended with around $29 million. We are not profitable yet. We're cash flow neutral. Yeah. We're we'll be we'll be profitable sometime this year on a sustained month after month fashion. We have had a few months here and there of profitability, but to really be profitable on an ongoing basis, it's something that will happen this year.
I think it's also important to know that we are close to profitability while still investing in R&D and investing in growth. So like we're still growing the business, so the top line is growing and we are close to profitability. So it's not just profitability at all costs. So like we're still growing the business.
When you say profitability, you mean like across different countries, right? Or just Singapore alone? Or on a group level?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Wow. It's so amazing. Like you guys literally came from almost zero to like now running a almost 30 million kind of annual run rate. And it is so amazing and one of the most inspiring stories that I've heard. And I don't think a lot of people know that, right? This kind of awesome story that you guys are going through. So looking back, after all these 9 years journey, you know, all the ups and downs, the roller coaster ride, what are the 3 biggest lessons that Osome learned from nearly dying and coming back and growing now?
I think even though it was a trend before 2025 to chase growth at all costs, I think the economics of a business don't change overnight. You need to focus on top line and bottom line at the same time. You need to focus on profitability. You can't just focus on one metrics because the market is asking you to. Maybe something about what technology can realistically do, whether like few years ago it was the idea of using machine learning to automate everything, or whether today is AI. You need to be realistic on how you're going to apply technology to create some extra margins or automate as much as possible. And I think that balance is what we are finally finding today, where we're able to give a lot of leverage to our team, but the team is still very much needed there because of the expertise and because of the trust that they bring.
Right. And on your second point, does that mean, you know, timing matters too? Because a few years back, when you had this grand vision of, you know, using tech to automate a lot of things, right? But back then, timing was still early, and it might not be possible, but it's made possible now that it suddenly becomes so efficient that you can use a lot of things. You can do a lot of things automatically, and then just leverage human for like more value-added services for your customers. Timing, tech risk.
Yeah, I think there are plenty of stories of startups that were too early or too late to the market.
Yeah.
And here, the vision was great from day one. Yes. The technology wasn't necessarily there to enable it on day one, but now it is.
And you believe now is the time for Osome to capture and start growing, and you know, with
absolutely
we never stop growing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So now, you know, now it's 2026. What does winning look like for Osome in, let's say, in the next 3 years? Like, what does winning look like for you? Because just now Eugenio mentioned about expanding to different countries, you know, capturing where the founders, the mobile founders are, the money flows in, you know, stuff like that. Like, give me a big picture. Like, what does winning look like for you guys in the next 3 years?
Big picture, I think winning would become the undisputed global standard for how cross-border founders scale up and grow.
Yeah.
So basically being able to automate as much as possible and provide all the back office support to the founders out there. And I think scale it to 100,000 clients and more. That would be an undoubtedly successful outcome. Yeah, I guess basically the strategy for the next 3 years is double down on the technology side and improve upon the automation and gross margins. And then scale in the existing markets, as well as launch the new geographies where we need to be present. And then we basically want to become a category-defining company that will become a one-stop shop for the businesses for all of their administrative needs, and a global platform in that manner. So if you're a founder, your go-to solution would be, okay, Osome is going to have my back, and Osome is going to handle all the compliance stuff that I need to do.
I think accelerating growth is absolutely the focus for the next 3 years. Following the founders globally where they want to go, it's really crucial for us continuing to deliver on the original vision.
Super exciting. Yeah, I think a lot of founders who really count on Osome to do all the back office administrative stuff. Even I myself, I'm considering now, because I do have a lot that I haven't, you know.
You should.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's great. Amazing. Thanks, guys. Really enjoy the honest conversation with you guys here. I think a lot of founders will get something from this one because we don't often hear the messy, behind the scene of building a company, especially you guys have been building for the last 9 years. So super appreciate that you guys came in to share this openly, the Osome's journey, the comeback story. I think this is super inspiring. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.